Welcome! It's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, well, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
When babies are born prematurely or with life-limiting diagnosis, they typically enter into hospice care, sometimes immediately after birth. Corey Selchert, a former perinatal bereavement nurse and mom of 8 biological children, is making it her mission to care for and love these hospice babies in their few years, weeks, and sometimes just days on Earth. Corey Selchert doesn't want people to call her an angel or a saint. She doesn't want people to misunderstand her life journey, and she certainly does not want people to think she's done everything alone. Selchert gained national attention 2 years ago because she and her husband, Mark, adopt children who are terminally ill. The couple have 8 biological children. She became known as a hospice mama. Now she's telling her story in a new book. With the support of her family, she started doing this incredible work with the goal of bringing love and comfort to these children whose parents were unable to provide proper care. In return, she's found redemption in her role as the hospice mama. Keep watching for a peek into the Wisconsin's Mom inspiring story about the power and joy of unconditional love, no matter the age, which she shares in her new memoir, I Will Love You Forever, a true story about finding life, hope, and healing while caring for hospice babies. I know what a person looks like who is actively dying, and Charlie wasn't exhibiting any of those signs or symptoms. However, he was certainly flirting with death. His SATs could drop out with no provocation or apparent medical reason. Dr. E ordered a new MRI of Charlie's brain and compared it to the one taken the previous year. He told me what he thought, and then he also showed me the differences in the MRIs and shared his opinion on Charlie's prognosis. Your baby is obviously well taken care of. You attend to him quickly and expertly. He's thriving in spite of his condition. I saw you playing with him, enjoying him. You love him, period. This child may die at any time because his tracheostomy could obstruct. But you need to also understand that, given the level of care he receives, you could also be looking at another 10 to 12 years before he'll be actively dying. At that point, his brain will not be able to keep up with the neurological demands his body will place on it. I left the office in Green Bay with Charity and Charlie in tow, and we drove home. I felt a little shell-shocked. I thought Charlie was going to die sooner than later, but I was certainly not wishing he would. I was confused and felt a little stupid. For the nearly 2 years he'd needed assistance to clear his airway and bagging to help restore his oxygen levels, I had assumed something was giving out that would result in death. Thinking that he could be doing this for another 10 to 12 years was disconcerting. I was 50 years old, and Mark was 61 at the time. We were looking at a longer timeline of caring for this child, years longer than we had anticipated. The weight of it rolled over me like a tank. There was no I quit, give him back, I didn't sign up for this. It was more a matter of, how in the world are we going to be able to care for this baby as he grew in length and got heavier and more difficult to physically manage? One of the biggest obstacles was the expense of a van equipped to handle his wheelchair with him in it. He's one with a chair. A 20-pound ventilator is mounted on the side. We did not have the money to buy a wheelchair-accessible van. It was something we talked about, but felt as if it were a moot point with Charlie's medical condition being so fragile. When we signed up to adopt him, we didn't feel as though we were out of our financial league because he was not expected to live long enough for a van to be an issue. God has a beautiful sense of humor. He absolutely wanted Charlie adopted and set that lonely boy in our family by his design. He also knew our hesitation about agreeing to something that we could not foreseeably afford. As noted earlier, when Mark and I got married, we had sex. Our eldest daughter popped out in February 1989, 9 months and 4 hours after our wedding day. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but each of us, separate from each other, came to the same conclusion and felt convinced that we didn't know squat about figuring out timing of having children. If we were trusting God with our eternal souls, then in our opinion, we would just be fine trusting him with the provision of the children he gave us. I write that now, seeing how peculiar it was to be convinced God would provide for the children. He enabled us to conceive, but doubting whether he would provide for a child we adopted. How hilariously silly to think otherwise. As I've read through the Old Testament over and over, I've seen this phrase, "And this has happened so that you may know that I am the Lord your God." Trials, suffering, Blessing, fertility, success, failure, everything was brought about so that the people God was dealing with would know He was the Lord. When I read this, my perspective changed, and now I fully understand that God is unchanging. We have biblical accounts of how God has worked to show us that we are not alone, uniquely experiencing random and meaningless trials. I've seen it written that when you write a book, you might as well slit your wrist and put it on the page. That kind of was what it was for me, she said. This story is about redemption and about God restoring a hope in me that at one point got lost. Salchert says she's already been approached about a screenplay and a possible movie. She wants Bruce Willis to play her husband. They do look an awful lot alike, she said through laughs. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.